Scattered across the landscapes of the Southern Hemisphere, there are villages so remote that they feel like another world. These isolated communities, often surrounded by mountains, deserts, or oceans, have unique ways of life shaped by their seclusion. Join me, I'm counting down 15 of the most isolated villages in the Southern Hemisphere. Number 15. Tristan Duna. Tristan Duna is a volcanic island located in the South Atlantic Ocean, roughly 1,500 miles southwest of St. Helena and over 2,400 miles from South Africa. Known as the most remote inhabited island on Earth, it sits as a lonely speck in an endless expanse of ocean, far removed from any major landmass. The island is part of a British overseas territory, and it serves as a home to around 250 people living in a settlement called Edinburgh of the Seven Seas. Getting here is no easy task. There's no airport, and the island can only be reached by sea. Boats bound for Tristan Duna depart from Cape Town, South Africa, and the journey takes about 6 days across unpredictable waters. The island's isolation isn't just geographical, it shapes nearly every aspect of life for its residents. The island is about 7.5 miles across, and it's dominated by Queen Mary's Peak, a volcanic cone rising about 6,700 feet above sea level. At the summit lies a heart-shaped lake, a rare sight for those willing to brave the challenging climb. The population here is small, tightly knit, and they're descended from just a handful of families who settled here in the early 19th century. Most residents share a handful of surnames, reflecting that community's unique genetic heritage. Now, this has led to notable occurrences of inherited conditions, such as retinitis pigmentosa, a rare eye disease, and a higher-than-average rate of asthma. Wildlife here is one of its most striking features. It's home to vast colonies of seabirds, including the endangered northern rockhopper penguin. The waters surrounding the islands are also teeming with marine life, and seals are a common sight along the rocky coastlines. The island's geological history, too, is equally fascinating. It was formed millions of years ago by volcanic activity linked to the Walvis Ridge hotspot. This island sits far from any tectonic boundary, and its volcanic origins have created a landscape of steep cliffs, lava fields, and fertile soil. Number 14. Moto. Moto, located on the southeastern region of Tibet on the Tibetan Plateau, is one of the most isolated places in the world. It sits along the lower reaches of the Yarlung Tsangpo River. Moto covers an area of roughly 12,000 square miles, and it's home to about 12,000 people, primarily from Monba and the Loba ethnic groups. Known historically as the last roadless county in China, it remained cut off from the outside world until a tunnel road was finally completed in 2013. For decades, reaching Moto was an arduous task. Before the completion of the Gaglonga Snow Mountain Tunnel and the Pai Moto Highway, travelers had to cross the 13,000-foot-high Dongshala Pass, often under treacherous snow and thin air conditions, followed by dangerous rope bridges over gorges. With an average elevation of around 4,000 feet, Moto is a rare pocket of warmth and greenery in an otherwise harsh and high-altitude region. The area supports over 3,000 species of higher plants, including bamboo and wild orchids, and produces tropical fruits such as bananas, oranges, and lemons. Life here is shaped by its isolation and the fertile environment. The Monba and Loba communities practice traditional farming and hunting, relying on the abundant natural resources of the region. Agriculture thrives here with crops such as rice and maize, while dense forests provide timber and medicinal plants. However, the remoteness still imposes limitations on healthcare, education, and access to modern conveniences. Aside from the location, Moto is also culturally significant. Known as Pemako in Tibetan Buddhism, meaning hidden lotus, the area is considered to be sacred. Its landscapes, with mountains forming petal-like formations around the central county, hold spiritual importance for many Tibetans. Pilgrims occasionally brave the journey here to visit the holy sites. Number 13. Barrow Island. Barrow Island, located about 31 miles off the Pilbara coast of Western Australia, is one of the most isolated inhabited places in the Southern Hemisphere. Covering approximately 78 square miles, it's the second largest island in Western Australia after Dirk Hartog Island. Well, despite its remoteness, Barrow Island is a place of significant ecological and historical interest. Reaching the island is no straightforward task. There's no public ferries or regular commercial flights, and access is restricted, primarily limited to workers and approved personnel. The island has its own private airport, Barrow Island Airport, which operates flights from Karratha and Perth. Visitors require permits as the island holds strict environmental and industrial controls due to its status as a Class A nature reserve. The island has a small, semi-permanent population of about 50 residents, mostly consisting of environmental scientists, oil and gas workers, and operational staff. Daily life on Barrow Island revolves around the dual focus of industrial activity and environmental preservation. Facilities here are highly functional, and they're designed to minimize the human impact on the ecosystem. Among the inhabitants here are the golden bandicoot, a spectacled hair wallaby, and the Barrow Island mouse. Reptile diversity, too, is equally impressive, with 43 species, including the Parenti, Australia's largest lizard. Offshore, the island's beaches serve as important nesting grounds for green and flatback sea turtles. Now, interestingly, Barrow Island holds the record for the highest non-tornadic wind gust ever recorded, clocking in at 254 miles an hour during Cyclone Olivia in 1996. This meteorological anomaly underscores the extreme weather conditions this island can experience. Today, though, it's best known for its role in Australia's oil and gas industry. Oil was first discovered on the island in 1964, and the extraction operations have since expanded significantly. The Gorgon Gas Project, one of the largest natural gas projects in the world, operates just north of the island. Strict biodiversity measures are in place to prevent the introduction of any invasive species, and every visitor must adhere to stringent protocols. Number 12. Faraday Station. Faraday Station, located on Galindez Island off the Antarctic Peninsula, is one of the most remote research outposts in the world. It's accessible only by ship. This former British research station, now known as the Vernadsky Research Base under Ukrainian administration, is a hub for scientific studies. The station sits about 700 miles south of the tip of South America. It's surrounded by towering icebergs, shifting glaciers, and treacherous seas. Isolation is a defining feature here. No roads, airports, or permanent connections to the outside world exist. Supplies arrive sporadically by ship and are often delayed by harsh weather. During winter, the station is completely cut off, with communications limited to radio and satellite systems. Faraday Station supports around 12 to 15 people and support staff year-round, with numbers rising slightly during the summer. The station's equipped with essential facilities, a kitchen, small library, communal lounge, and even a bar where visitors used to enjoy homemade horilka, a traditional Ukrainian spirit. Winter months bring complete darkness for extended periods, while summer months offer continuous daylight, both adding to the unique challenge, mental and physical. The station was originally established in 1947 by the British Falkland Islands Dependency Survey. Faraday Station has long been a center for meteorology, ionospheric studies, and geophysics. Reaching the station requires determination. Expeditions typically depart from Argentina, crossing the notoriously rough Drake Passage by ship. And Faraday Station is one of the few places in Antarctica where visitors can send postcards from an active post office. Mails sent from here can take months to arrive, but it carries the unique stamp of having traveled from one of the most isolated corners of the planet. The station also played a key role in ozone layer research, contributing to the discovery of the Antarctic ozone hole. Visitors can tour the facilities, buy souvenirs, and even learn about ongoing research. However, tourism is heavily regulated to minimize any impact. Number 11. Palmerston Island. Palmerston Island, a remote atoll in the Cook Islands of the South Pacific, is one of the most isolated places on Earth. It's located roughly 2,000 miles northeast of New Zealand and 2,800 miles southwest of Hawaii. It is accessible by sea, with supply ships arriving at most twice a year. With a population hovering around 60 people, nearly all of whom are descendants of one man, life on Palmerston Island operates within a tight-knit community shaped by geography, history, and, of course, sheer isolation. The island itself sits atop the summit of a submerged volcano, rising more than 13,000 feet from the ocean floor. It consists of over a dozen small sandy islets, or Moto, encircling a calm central lagoon. The islets are covered with coconut palms and trees, and together they span about 1 square mile of land. Life here is defined by simplicity. There are no grocery stores, restaurants, or hospitals. Fresh water primarily comes from rainwater collected in plastic cisterns. And when these personal supplies run dry, the community relies on a shared reservoir. Food revolves around what the island can provide: coconuts, fish, shellfish, and occasionally seabirds. Wahoo and parrotfish are dietary staples here, while the red-tailed tropical bird or bosun bird is known for its distinctive gamey flavor. Communication with the outside world relies on satellite technology, though internet access remains inconsistent. All of Palmerston's population traces its root back to William Marsters, an Englishman who settled on the island in the 1860s with his 3 Polynesian wives. Today, nearly everyone on the island shares his surname and belongs to one of those 3 family groups. Number 10. Villa Las Estrellas. Located on King George Island in Antarctica, situated over 625 miles across the frigid Southern Ocean from the nearest major hospital in Chile, this small Chilean outpost offers a rare glimpse into life on one of the harshest environments of Earth. With a population of around 100 people during the Antarctic summer, the village shrinks even further when winter sets in. Unlike most research stations here, it's unique because it's a workplace for scientists as well as a home. Families, including children, live here alongside rotating scientists, military personnel, and support staff. Now, this creates an unusual social structure for a place so remote. The village contains just 14 houses, a school staffed by 2 teachers, a modest church, a gym, a post office, and even a small souvenir shop. There's also a single banker who oversees financial needs of this isolated settlement. Traveling here is not easy. Access is limited to the summer months, and visitors typically arrive by small aircraft landing on a nearby gravel airstrip or by ship navigating the waters of the Southern Ocean. Day-to-day life revolves around adaptation to extreme isolation and unpredictable climate. Internet access exists down here, but it's restricted, primarily available through the school's 3 computers. But despite the isolation, the settlement sees an influx of tourists during the summer. Visitors can join snowmobile and ski expeditions, observe emperor penguins and orcas, or send postcards with the coveted Antarctic postmark from the Corostechile post office. Nearby, the Russian Bellingshausen station offers additional research opportunities, including studies on polar auroras and glaciology. Together, these 2 outposts create a rare hub of human activity in an otherwise desolate and appendix-free island. Number 9. Puerto Eden. Villa Puerto Eden is located in the far reaches of southern Chile, nestled on Wellington Island in the Patagonia region. This tiny hamlet sits in one of the most isolated and rugged regions of the world, where towering glaciers, dense forests, and unpredictable seas define the landscape. What truly sets this place apart from other villages, even in the remote wilderness of Patagonia, is its extreme isolation. Due to the nearly impenetrable terrain and lack of roads, the village remains a hidden gem, offering a lifestyle of extreme isolation. The nearest town of any significant size is Puerto Natales, roughly 75 miles away by boat, and reaching it can take several hours depending on weather. The area experiences an extremely wet subpolar oceanic climate with frequent rainfall, with the village seeing as few as 18 dry days in the year. The region's intense precipitation and high humidity have also prevented the construction of roads, and the village relies on wooden boardwalks to connect homes and businesses. Now, this creates a unique, almost floating atmosphere in the village. At any given time, it's home to approximately 100 people. The village has been the last stronghold of the Huascar people, an indigenous group with a deep maritime heritage. The modern-day peoples, while largely settled, still maintain close ties to their seafaring roots. This village is one of the last places where that language is spoken, though it's endangered with few fluent speakers left. The village itself is also pretty unique in its lack of infrastructure. No vehicles can traverse the region due to the weather, geography, and simple facts that roads have never been built. Instead, the entire settlement relies on walkways and the ferry system for all movement. The houses, shops, and communal areas are connected via wooden paths, which add to the feeling of community suspended between land and sea. Number 8. Huacachina. Huacachina, located in the southwestern deserts of Peru, is one of the most isolated places in the Southern Hemisphere. It's about 3 miles from the city of Ica and roughly 190 miles south of Lima, Peru. This tiny settlement is centered around a rare natural desert oasis. With a permanent population of around 100 people, Huacachina exists as both a remote outpost and a magnet for adventurers. The village is surrounded by towering sand dunes, some reaching heights of over 1,600 feet. The only way to reach Huacachina is by road, with travelers first arriving in Ica after a 5-hour bus ride from Lima. From there, a short drive through dusty desert paths leads to the oasis. The isolation here isn't just physical. The village exists in a bubble of time, with its palm-lined lagoon offering an almost surreal contrast to the harsh desert landscape. Life here revolves around tourism. While permanent residents do include local business owners, tour operators, and hospitality staff, the population swells with visitors seeking sandboarding adventures and dune buggy rides. The Oasis Lagoon at the heart of Hacacha is not just a picturesque feature, it is steeped in legend. According to local folklore, the lagoon was created when a beautiful princess, startled by a hunter while bathing, fled and left her mirror behind. The mirror is said to have turned into the lagoon, and the folds of her flowing mantle became the surrounding dunes. However, the lagoon's water source has faced some challenges. It was historically fed by underground aquifers, and over-extraction of groundwater from nearby wells caused the water levels to drop in the early 2000s. In response, local authorities began artificially pumping water into the lagoon in 2015 to prevent it from drying up. For such an isolated place, though, Hacacha offers surprising amenities. Visitors are going to find small guest houses, restaurants serving traditional Peruvian cuisine, and shops selling handmade souvenirs. But despite the modest infrastructure, Hacacha also has modern conveniences like Wi-Fi, though connectivity can be spotty. The sand dunes here are not just scenic backdrops, they're functional terrain for adventurers. Sandboarding, akin to snowboarding but on sand, is a major attraction here, drawing thrill seekers from around the world. Dune buggies, known locally as arañeros, roar across the vast landscapes, offering exhilarating rides. Moving on to number 7, Tikopia. Tikopia is a remote volcanic island located in the far southeastern region of the Solomon Islands. It measures just under 2 square miles. This small island rises from the ocean as a remnant of an extinct volcano, with its highest peak, Mount Riani, reaching approximately 1,250 feet. The island is home to about 1,200 people, distributed across more than 20 coastal villages, with Matuatu being the largest settlement. The population has remained relatively stable for centuries due to deliberate social and agricultural practices aimed at preventing overpopulation. Life here revolves around sustainable agriculture and fishing. The people here have refined agricultural methods over generations, including complex crop rotation systems and the intentional removal of pigs from the island in the 1600s to reduce competition for food. Fishing, though, remains central to daily life, with rituals and cultural significance tied to the practice. Getting here is no easy task. There's no airports or regular ferries. Supply boats occasionally visit, but their schedules are irregular, sometimes months apart. The isolation here has preserved the cultural integrity. Unlike other regions in the Solomon Islands, Tikopia remains deeply rooted in traditional Polynesian customs and language. Despite being geographically part of Melanesia, Tikopians identify strongly with their Polynesian heritage. Another unique aspect here is Lake Teroto, a crater lake in the island's center that was once freshwater, but it turned brackish after a storm breached its natural barrier to the sea in 2002. This feature adds to the island's distinct landscape. Number 6. Florana Island. Florana Island, located in Ecuador's Galapagos archipelago, stands as one of the most remote inhabited places in the Southern Hemisphere. Covers an area of 67 square miles, and it rises to a height of 2,100 feet at Cerro Pajas. Its isolation, sparse population, and unique history make it a fascinating subject of study and exploration. It sits 600 miles off the coast of mainland Ecuador, deep in the Pacific Ocean. Reaching the island here is not easy. Visitors typically arrive via small boats from Santa Cruz Island after a 2-hour journey across sometimes turbulent water. Supplies have to be ferried in from other islands, making self-sufficiency here a crucial aspect of daily life. The island's home to about 100 permanent residents, most of whom are descendants of early settlers. Now, these people rely heavily on fishing, small-scale farming, and tourism for their livelihoods. Electricity here is limited and often powered by solar panels or generators, and internet access remains sporadic. The island, though, has a colorful and sometimes dark history. In the early 19th century, it served as a crucial stop for whalers who relied on its freshwater supply. Post Office Bay, famous landmark on the island, still holds a wooden barrel where sailors once left letters to be picked up and delivered by passing ships, a tradition still upheld by modern visitors. Floriana's biodiversity, too, is another defining characteristic. It's home to several endemic species, including the critically endangered Galapagos petrel and the medium tree finch. Visitors can spot sea turtles, reef sharks, and schools of colorful fish among the coral reefs. However, human activity has introduced species that have caused significant damage. The endemic Florana tortoise was once declared extinct, and the native Florana mockingbird now survives only on nearby islets. Yet the isolation here also creates a deep bond among the island's residents, who share responsibilities and resources in a way that's rarely seen in more populated places. Number 5. Rapanui. Rapanui, more commonly known as Easter Island, is located in the southeastern Pacific Ocean, and it lies about 2,200 miles from mainland Chile and about 1,300 miles from Pitcairn Island. This small triangular island spans about 63 square miles, yet it carries immense historical, cultural, and geographic significance. The island is home to roughly 8,000 residents, with about half identifying as indigenous Rapanui, and life here revolves around tourism, agriculture, and of course fishing. Modern amenities are available, but life here remains deeply connected to tradition and the natural environment. Supplies are shipped in from mainland Chile, and the island relies heavily on weekly flights from Santiago for both goods and people. Education and employment opportunities are also constrained, often requiring residents to travel to the mainland for advanced studies or specialized work. Now, despite its small size and isolation, Rapanui is world famous for its nearly 1,000 moai statues. These are massive stone figures carved centuries ago by the island's early inhabitants. These statues, some standing over 30 feet tall and weighing up to 80 tons, are scattered across the island. The construction and transportation of these statues remain a subject of fascination and study and debate among archaeologists and historians. Tourism plays a central role in the local economy, with thousands of people arriving each year to marvel at the moai, explore ancient ceremonial sites, and experience traditional culture. The island's fragile ecosystem, though, has suffered from deforestation, overgrazing, and the pressures of increased tourism. Efforts are ongoing to protect the island's culture and natural resources, including the management of Rapanui National Park. That's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Rapanui's oral traditions tell of its first settlers, led by the legendary chief Hotumatua, who arrived from a distant land in double-hulled canoes. The island was divided among his descendants, with each clan managing its respective territory. In modern times, though, Rapanui has gained a special territorial status within Chile, allowing for a greater local governance and cultural preservation efforts. However, challenges such as balancing tourism with environmental protection and addressing the island's limited resources remain ongoing. Number 4. Bou Island. Bou Island is often described as the most isolated landmass on Earth. It's a small, ice-covered volcanic island situated in the South Atlantic. It's located about 1,000 miles away from Antarctica and over 1,400 miles from South Africa. It's one of the most remote places on the planet. The island spans just 19 square miles, with about 93% of its surface permanently covered by glacial ice. The climate here is classified as polar, characterized by frigid temperatures, relentless winds, and frequent snow. Despite the inhospitable conditions, though, Bou Island serves as an important sanctuary for wildlife. The island has a large colony of seabirds, including petrels, fulmars, and squaws, while its shores are breeding grounds for seals, including fur seals and elephant seals. Scientists who have managed to land on the island, often under extremely challenging conditions, have conducted studies on glaciology, volcanology, and marine biology. In addition to these studies, Bou Island is an ideal location for monitoring environmental changes. Its remote location ensures minimal human interference, allowing scientists to study pollution levels, climate change effects, and migratory patterns of marine animals. The history of the island is as intriguing as its geography. It was first discovered in 1739 by French explorer Jean-Baptiste Charles Bouvet de Lozier. However, the island was poorly mapped, and its precise location remained uncertain for over a century. In the early 20th century, Norwegian expeditions successfully located and claimed the island, eventually making it a dependency of Norway in 1930. Accessing the island is notoriously difficult. The combination of its location, unpredictable weather, and treacherous water make landing on the island a logistical nightmare. Despite the challenges, though, Bou Island remains an object of fascination for scientists, explorers, and even environmentalists. Number 3. Adamstown. Adamstown, the capital of the Pitcairn Islands, It's a living example of the isolation in the Southern Hemisphere. With a population of around 50 people, Adamstown is one of the smallest capitals by population. That adds to its charm. Its remote location, nearly 3,000 miles from New Zealand, places it in one of the most secluded parts on Earth. The only way to reach it is by sea. There are no airports or direct air routes here. Periodic ship visits from Tahiti or Mangareva, but these visits are rare, making travel to Adamstown an arduous process. The village itself is perched above the waterline, connected to the rest of the island by a steep path known as the Hill of Difficulty. This rugged terrain and the island's limited access highlight just how isolated Adamstown truly is. Adamstown is home to around 50 people, most of whom are descendants of the British mutineers of the HMS Bounty and their Tahitian companions. Farming and fishing are primary sources of sustenance here, with crops grown in the island's valleys and surrounding ocean providing a steady supply of fish. While there is limited infrastructure, including satellite internet, television, and a telephone line, the main means of communication for the villagers remain ham radio, underscoring the distance between Adamstown and the outside world. The limited population, though, means that everyone plays a part in the upkeep of the settlement, whether it's tending to the gardens, maintaining the infrastructure, or managing the island's rare interactions with the outside world. Adamstown holds the distinction of being one of the world's smallest capitals with just 50 residents. This makes it an intriguing curiosity for travelers and those interested in the most isolated communities on Earth. Adamstown itself was formally established in 1790 by the mutineers of the HMS Bounty. The island's topography is both beautiful and intimidating. Visitors who make the long journey here can explore the Bounty Bay, the harbor where the mutineers first anchored, and Christian's Cave, where Fletcher Christian took refuge after leading the infamous mutiny. The island's remoteness, along with its history, create a sense of mystique that draws travelers from all over, though few can actually make the trek. Number 2. Marayo. Marayo, the largest river island in the world, sits at the mouth of the Amazon River in Brazil. Covering an area of about 15,000 square miles, it's larger than Switzerland, and it remains one of the most isolated regions in the Southern Hemisphere. The island is separated from the mainland by a complex network of rivers, bays, and the Atlantic. Its population of around 140,000 people is spread across small villages, with the largest towns being Sore, Salvaterra, and Breves. The communities rely heavily on fishing, farming, and the herding of water buffalo, an animal that's become a symbol of the island. The buffalo, numbering over 450,000, outnumber the human population and are used for transportation, labor, and even as police mounts. Settlements here are often built on stilts, known locally as palafitas, to withstand the rising water. Now, despite that challenge, the island's natural beauty attracts a modest number of tourists, particularly surfers drawn to the pororoca, a powerful tidal bore that can produce waves up to 13 feet. Now, historically, it was home to the Marajoara culture, an advanced pre-Columbian society that thrived from around 400 BC to 1600 AD. The society was divided into matrilineal clans with tasks distributed by age, gender, and skill level. The arrival of Europeans in the 16th century brought catastrophic consequences, with diseases wiping out an estimated 90% of the indigenous population. The island is divided into 3 microregions: Harari, Flores de Breves, and Portel, each with distinct characteristics. The eastern savanna supports large Lake Harari, a seasonal body of water that shrinks significantly during the dry season. The western side is dominated by forests and smaller agricultural operations. Additionally, the northern regions feature palm swamps primarily composed of buriti palm, which are seasonally flooded during rainy months. The island's culture and its importance ecologically speaking can't be overstated. From the indigenous heritage to the unique buffalo culture and stunning wetlands, it offers a rare intersection of history, nature, and isolation. Its equatorial position and diverse ecosystem make it not only a place of natural wonder, but also an essential area for ongoing environmental research and conservation efforts. Number 1. Puerto Toro. Puerto Toro, a remote hamlet perched on the eastern coast of Navarino Island in Chile, is the southernmost permanently inhabited settlement on Earth. Located below the 55th parallel south and approximately 2,425 miles from the South Pole, this tiny community sits where the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans meet, along the frigid waterways of the Beagle Channel. It's home to roughly 50 people, though the number can fluctuate slightly depending on fishing seasons and temporary visits from scientists or officials. The majority of the residents are fishermen and their families who rely heavily on the prized centola or southern king crab for their livelihoods. This species is a delicacy in the world, and the crab fishing industry serves as the economic backbone of this settlement. Life here revolves around routines dictated by fishing seasons, supply shipments, and the unpredictable weather. There are no stores, cafes, or restaurants. Residents rely on periodic supply runs from Puerto Williams for essential goods, and social interactions often happen in shared community spaces or during the monthly supply boat visits. Electricity is limited, often running on generators, and internet connectivity is either non-existent or extremely limited. Reaching here is an adventure. There are no roads connecting it to Puerto Williams or anywhere else, and the only way in and out is by boat, typically by supply vessel. For visitors, arrangements have to be made with the caballeros in Puerto Williams beforehand. Passports are required, and boarding the vessel is far from a casual affair. It serves as the primary means of transporting supplies and provisions for the people there. Miss the return boat, and the options are slim. Either wait an entire month for the next trip or undertake a challenging 2-day trek across rugged terrain back to Puerto Williams. Puerto Toro was established in 1892 during the Tierra del Fuego gold rush. Now, at the time, the promise of gold drew hopeful miners and adventurers from Chile, Argentina, and even Europe to this remote corner. For a brief moment, it was a bustling frontier town. However, by 1894, the gold rush had fizzled out, and most prospectors abandoned the area. While the gold may have disappeared, the centola proved to be a far more sustainable resource. Puerto Toro's isolation cannot be overstated. The nearest town is roughly 37 miles away by sea. From there, it's another 600 miles to Punta Arenas, the regional capital on the Chilean mainland. There are no roads, no airstrips, and no alternative routes. Supplies have to come by boat, and communication with the outside world is limited. This extreme isolation shapes every aspect of life here. Residents have to be resourceful, self-reliant, and prepared for delays in essential goods. Medical emergencies present significant challenges, with potential help days away. If the people who live here have adapted to those conditions, they fish, they share resources, and they maintain a quiet sense of community built around shared challenges and the rhythms of the sea. Thanks for exploring these places with me. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you to our channel members.